Okay, let's begin. So we're going to talk about Tarot card number 7, Triumph. But of course, I mean, that's the problem with Triumph. Triumph implies something, doesn't it? You know what I mean? Like you triumph over something. Triumph's a pretty strong word in English, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like when you think, what was it recently? Where Paolo was trying to use the word devastated, I think it was, or something, and we were trying to explain to him how much more, how it's more than just like feeling bad or having a hard day. You know, devastation is like a very important term. You know, the same thing with triumph. Triumph means a lot more than to just simply, you know, do a good job or give yourself a pat on the back. It's funny because our society is kind of like that. You know, our society sort of lost the meaning of words. You know, because we say things like Pride Month and it means, you know, you need to be really happy that you're a bit sort of strange, you know, or something like that. But proud of what? Like, what have you achieved? You know, it used to be you have to achieve something to be proud of something. Do you know what I mean? It's like that in Japan still. If you like master your craft, then you've got something to be proud of. But if you haven't, then you have nothing to be proud of. Do you know what I mean? And this is the thing. So we've lost the use of the word. So the word triumph, yeah, it doesn't mean that you've, you know, gone out and told everyone that you're gender ambiguous or something like that. The word triumph means that you've actually overcome something.
Adversity.
Yeah, that's right. Triumph means to overcome adversity. So this card, through the implication of its own name, the back makes a lot of sense when it says wars, struggles, atonement, pain, and bitterness, because that's what you triumph over. So receiving this card, I'll give you the spoiler for the end, yeah? Receiving this card in a prediction always means that there's difficulties ahead, but they are difficulties that will lead us to triumph, if you understand what I mean. So it's a very positive card, but it's a card that's also telling you that you've got hard times ahead. You get this card, it's straight up telling you you're about to go through some really hard moments, some struggles, really. But they will build character. You know what I mean? The struggles that you have, the bitterness that you go through, once you triumph over it, will be something beautiful and will build character, force, the bodies. I mean, that's the whole esoteric path, really, is a path of many triumphs over ourselves. And obviously, just to be clear, those bitterness, struggles, and tests are always inside ourselves. Even if other people provide means or help for that, it doesn't matter. It's still inside yourself. Even if someone, you know, someone is being, you know, having a go at you or something, the struggle is always within yourself. Always. Yeah? Because it's the mind. It's the polarity of the mind. Anyway, I'll get into that. So let's just explain. So first of all, the number 7 reminds us of many things, yeah? 7 is the law of order. And that's called the sacred heptaparapashanok, which is a Gurdjieffian word and refers to the law of order in the whole universe. Everything is organized by the law of the 7. Created by the law of 3, organized by the law of 7. Very important. So it means that, you know, we have 7 bodies, there's 7 worlds of existence, there's 7 parts of the, there's not 7 parts, I mean, it's 24 parts of the being. But 7 major parts. There's 7 cosmos, there's 7 musical notes, yeah, 7 dimensions. There's this constant reoccurring that all things are ordered by the law of 7. Yeah, created by the law of 3, but ordered by the law of 7. It's very important, yeah. So that's the power of the 7. And so this card has, in that sense, to do with the creation of the 7 bodies, yeah. The 7, looking at the Kabbalah here, the 7 bodies are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So even in the Kabbalah, you have the law of 3 and then the law of 7. The 7 worlds of creation and the 3. The 3 that creates and the 7 then organizes the force that was created. This is the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. And then under here you have the innermost being, consciousness, will, mind, astral, emotion, sex, and the vital energy, and then the physical body. And for the Father to actually rule in his creation, for the Father to actually, the highest part of the being, to actually express in the physical world, there must be order in the 7 bodies. That means that the chariot has to be created. The chariot is the 7 bodies created and completely perfected. The 7 bodies completely created and perfected is the same thing as saying the cubicle stone. Yeah? When they've reached their utmost perfection, the highest level of perfection. Yeah? When we create them first in the first mountain, then they are turned to bodies of light by the Christ, and then the bodies of gold, again by the Christ in the second mountain, and that's when we have the cubicle stone. So in this picture here, let's get this here. So in the picture here, at the top we have Ra, which is, again, like we mentioned before, reminds us of the top part of the Kabbalah. So Ra is the Father, but also the 3 primary forces, the higher part of the being, supported by the chariot. The chariot, as we said here, the chariot itself is the cubicle stone. It rides in the sexual waters, that's pretty important, and it is driven by the sphinxes. And the sphinxes represent duality. One's white, and this one's kind of a bit orange, but it should be white. Yeah? One's white and one's black, which represents the duality in mind. We'll go into that as we go deeper into the card. But that's the representation of the mind, this part here. So the chariot is pulled along by these representations of duality, but it is duality that has now been put in its place, the mind that is in its place. That's very important, yeah? The mind in its place actually is a very good vehicle for the being. The mind not in its place starts to think that it is the being. Yeah, starts to try to control everything. Okay, in the chariot you have the innermost. Yeah, the innermost is our real being, our interior being. If we go back to our Kabbalah here, this, we said the Father and the 3 primary forces, and then this is the innermost here. That was tarot card number 4 that we did a few weeks ago, and now we're up to tarot card number 7. And so the innermost and Atman should rule over the mind. That's the correct order of it. In our society, that's not what happens. We've drawn it before, where we have this thing where we are like the little essence and we're trapped. This is how Kabbalah looks like for us. Yeah, we don't have all of that. All the other stuff is far away from us and we have to sort of call out to it. But we have a connection to it, but we're not properly connected to it. And so mind, sex, desire, which are the negative sides of these 4 here, and the physical body, are then working against us. And so here in this class, we're mostly talking about the mind. So the mind here in this picture is the vehicle for the being. The being rides with the sword, which is the fire, which is the Kundalini fire, awakens through the practice of sexual alchemy. He's got the 4 pillars, which is the correct functioning of the mind. When the mind functions correctly, it has the 4 pillars within it. Yeah, it should be that way. It's interesting in our society. Our society has completely separated the 4 pillars. Yeah, art, religion, science, and philosophy have been completely separated. Like 100% separated. Yeah, art is completely on its own. Art is now done for its own sake. People, like I went to the house of, you can occasionally, I go and I fix a lot of houses, and I was fixing a house with 2 artists in it today. And there was just art everywhere. You know what I mean? Like just paint everywhere, and they've done little pictures everywhere. But they were just like, they weren't bad. You tell these people had what's the word? Talent. They were talented artists, like you could see they were painting and they knew what they were doing. You could see they'd been experimenting, their watercolors were well mixed, etc. But the subject matter was terrible. You know what I mean? It wasn't something of beauty. It wasn't like someone who spent their whole life trying to create something special or work towards. It was just expression, but with nothing behind it. There was no science. There was no, golden standard behind or what beauty should be or anything like that. There's no philosophy and there was no religion. We're not trying to depict something beautiful that lifts up humanity. We're just doing whatever, because art can either serve God or it can serve man. When it serves man, it serves self. You understand what I mean? So it can either serve yourself or it can serve God. And there's only 2 ways. Yeah, rock stars serve themselves. You understand what I mean? Whereas someone who can actually serve God, well, this is a much, much higher art. So, but I see that art, and the art, it's just kind of, I was in the toilet there, and they just had this painting. It was just black, and then in the black was like a veil of like light, but the light was also black. And it was like black on black, and I was like, this is very depressing, you know? Like I saw it, I thought, oh, that's very well done, the way they've done it, I get it. But it's like basically the picture is just depression. You know what I mean? I was like, nice. If depression was a picture, you nailed it, you know what I mean? But why would you want that in your toilet? You know, why would when you sit down just look and go, you know, like... And anyway, so I'm not having a go, I'm just sort of pointing out that these things are separated. Philosophy now. Do you know what philosophy is? What is modern philosophy?
Hearsay. Positivism.
Memes.
Positivism.
Unfortunately, it's memes. That's what they did.
Close. That's pretty much social media. Advertising. Advertising is philosophy now. Advertising. You have to go to Instagram, it's all philosophy. Everyone is a pop psychologist on Instagram now. You just got to feel this way. You just got to do this. I used to suffer. Now I use this weird thing that I shove in my nose and it makes me feel better. Or I put this thing in my ear, or I put this thing in my mouth, or I chew special thing that repairs all my teeth. I chew, what is it, special tree sap chewing gum that fixes my teeth. And now I'm happy. Look, I'm happy. You know, remember, as you know, how does it go? Philosophy without ethics is advertising. You remember that? That's an old saying. And that's the way it is, yeah? So philosophy now is just advertising. That's our philosophy. And it's someone who's successful at advertising is now considered, ready? A philosopher. Literally, people flock from all over the world to go see Tony Robbins, to go see these guys who are amazing advertisers, because we all want to be their friends. They're the new Socrates, they're the new Plato. Everybody wants to know their philosophy on life. How is it that you get up in the morning? What's your morning routine? I want to know how you live your day, because obviously you know how to live life and how to think. And yet it's actually not hilariously, sadly, many of these guys kill themselves. They kill themselves. It happened, remember, recently, here in Suffolk, yeah? It happened. These guys, they're big advertising guys. They're spouting philosophy. Their philosophy is empty because it's not tied to religion. And their philosophy is all just about making money. That's not real philosophy, yeah?
Which is also deception.
Exactly, it's deception. And eventually that deception builds up inside themselves and they kill themselves. They say that it happens all the time. Or they just, you know, die miserable of natural causes, yeah? But the point is, the philosophy's gone. The same thing. The religious people now attacking everything. The religious person attacks science, attacks philosophy, attacks art. I remember my stepfather's Lutheran, and so I spent a bit of time in Lutheran churches, and they don't like art in Lutheran. In fact, I remember when I met my stepfather's father, I remember I met him. He's a priest or pastor. They don't have priests; they have pastors. I'm not sure the difference between a pastor. And he, I remember he came in, and you go into their churches, they have no pictures of the Christ, none, because that was the whole thing. Remember, the Catholics were selling pictures of the Christ. They were selling everything. Like it's the opposite. You go to Italy, and all they do is it's simony. Simony means to sell church items, yeah. And the whole of Italy it functions on simony now. Like everywhere you go, someone will sell you a little communion bracelet or sell you a cross or something like that. But Lutheran's the other way around. It's like, no, let's remove everything. That's why you go to Germany and everything's just kind of grey, and they don't want to, because their Christianity was to remove all of the religious iconography and to try and strip it back to just bare belief, bare connection to the Christ. But the problem is, in doing so, they removed the inspiration from the people. They removed art. And I saw that. I remember when I met him, he just had it was like a giant cross, but it was just completely grey and it kind of spiky. It almost looked like the sort of one you would see a bikie wearing on a big chain. And he's wearing like one of those like velvet jumpsuits that like George Costanza wears, like that. And then he just had a hat that said, I may be fat, but I can diet and you're just plain ugly. I was just seeing this guy like, you're a priest. What? Like, where's the philosophy in the hat? You're abusing people you don't even know. There's no inspiration there, And so, so all this sort of stuff, right? These four pillars used to work together. When you see Goethe, for instance, Goethe was a scientist, a philosopher, an artist, yeah? And of course, a very religious man all at once, yeah? The same with all these guys, Da Vinci, all of these famous artists. Most of them were also scientists. You know, back in the day, if you wanted to be an artist, you had to be a scientist because you had to mix your own paint. You had to be a chemist. If you wanted to do something really good, you had to learn how to make... A lot of the greatest artists were renowned because they made their own pigments. Because you just couldn't... There wasn't other people doing it. You just had to figure it out. And so all of these people, and all of them were religious, and all of them understood the philosophy. And even if you look at our early universities, these were all religious men, but at the same time, they learnt the classics for their philosophy. They appreciated art, even if it was pagan, they didn't care. And at the same time, yeah, all of them had the four elements together. Yeah, they appreciated science, but they knew that it came in the end from God. So they had this thing. So the four pillars sustain the whole structure. And the beings in the middle. He's holding in the other hand the Kabbalah. He's ready to go to war, which we're going to talk about when we get there in the thing. This staff represents the Kabbalah, which represents the internal bodies that are created, but also the work that has to be done. So, okay, let's talk then about the chariot itself. So as you said, the chariot represents the creation of the bodies. I already said that. But and triumph, struggle, we already said that. So the next most important point is the dominion of the mind. This is really, really important. This is taught really well in the East. They value the dominion of the mind very strongly in the Eastern religions, to the point where a lot of people actually sort of feel like Eastern religions are actually like they don't have gods, but that's not true. You know, you look at the Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, it's just soaked in gods. Yeah, it's the same thing in Hindus. They're soaked in gods. Yeah, Buddhism has many, many gods. Even the Buddha himself is a symbol of the innermost of our being. Yeah, when we say to be the Buddha, to become the Buddha. So even the way they write self with a capital S, and it doesn't mean yourself. It means the true self. It means the being. Yeah. So with a capital S. So to dominate the mind, this is very important. So the mind itself is like a naughty child. In fact, Samael refers to the mind, and old alchemical texts refer to the mind as being a donkey. That's why the Christ rides into Bethlehem. Is it Bethlehem? Bethlehem, isn't it? Oh, my brain's... Yeah, it's Bethlehem, on a donkey.
Is it Jerusalem?
Jerusalem. Sorry, Jerusalem. No, he born in Bethlehem. Yeah, rides into Jerusalem on the donkey.
There was a donkey.
There was a donkey.
In the Bethlehem part.
That's right, but it's not the part we're thinking about. No. Not that donkey.
Well, technically he was riding on a donkey then as well, but
There was
inside,
Mother Mary.
but inside the belly of the Lord. So, if you want to get details, you're kind of correct.
That's right. So, we're talking about the famous palms singing Hosanna. So when he comes in, that symbol is the representation of the mind in its correct place. In fact, that specific symbolism is the internal symbolism of the Christ taking control of the mental body. That's the internal representation of what that actually means. To have that experience yourself in the internal worlds is when you have actually reached the fourth Gnostic initiation, when the mind has become a body of light, has become the Christic mind. And so the Christ dominating the mind, dominating the ass, dominating the donkey. Now, it's interesting, if you look at, I've got a picture, I should have printed it out, it's so funny. It's an old alchemical picture. And you know they had those little drawings they used to do, those little pictures? One of the little pictures they had was of a man like being ridden by a donkey. And I really enjoy the alchemical pictures because they're all completely veiled, because it was during that sort of Inquisition-y kind of time. You couldn't teach the teachings even, you couldn't even mention sex. They just instantly cook you on some nice, good quality green slow wood. You know what I mean? They'd make sure that you roasted in a really good way, yeah? So all of their stuff was very veiled. And I love that one. The veiling of that is they showed a man being ridden by a donkey, yeah? And this is obviously a symbol of the mind controlling the whole human machine. The man represents will. Yeah. A man represents willpower, thelema. That's what thelema means. Thelema means conscious willpower. That's what this word means. And so when the man is ridden by the donkey, it means that the mind is dominating our will. And this is quite a problem, because the way to actually dominate the mind is with the willpower. See, the mind is constantly sort of making deals, because the mind lives completely in duality, right? The mind always lives in less and more, now and before, or now and tomorrow. It's constantly living like this, and the mind's always trying to make deals. Kids are always trying to make deals. Can we go tomorrow? Can we lock that in? You know, all right, I'll go to bed, but I better get a lolly or something tomorrow. They're always trying to make a deal. This is learning to use the mind. Yeah, there's always compromise involved with the mind. I'm trying to sort of work out the best deal for myself, you know, and it's quite interesting because the mind itself has kind of elevated itself in our society to being seen as like the highest point or highest expression in our society now. Do you know what I mean? Like everybody believes that the mind is the most important thing. Like at the moment, the jobs that really pay are all intellectual jobs. Do you know what I mean? Okay, it's sort of starting to change a bit. The tradesmen are suddenly taking over, you know, slowly. Now tradesmen, like, what was it? Ed said if Ed started working, his dad's a vet, and if he started working for himself as an electrician, he'd now make more than his dad. And I remember he said, I don't really want to do that. It feels wrong. You know, it feels wrong. My dad went to university and he's this really skilled intellectual, and suddenly I'm going to be making more money than him. In fact, if he ran an outfit of electricians like the guy he works for, he would make he could make twice what his dad made. You know what I mean?
There's only
Easily.
5 jobs left in 2030.
What's that?
There's only going to be 5 professions left in 2030.
Oh, what are those?
Plumber, electrician, carpenter, possibly handyman if you're lucky.
You know what's interesting?
And then it's pretty much the ones that do the shed.
Is that even the carpenter? I think they're going to run themselves out of town.
What's that?
I think that the tradesmen are going to run themselves out of town for 2 reasons. One, they keep getting more expensive, but at the same time as getting more expensive, they're doing less. They won't do. When I first started handymanning, I came to fill the gap between a person who's doing, you know, between the guy who will the carpenter and the I guess even the little old lady. And I did a lot more real estate and little old lady work back then, you know, because still back then a carpenter would still hang a door. A carpenter would come around and still fix some architraving in your house if it wasn't right, or repair things, or even put a wall in between 2 rooms. Now
We do it.
you're starting to do it.
We do all the stuff.
That's
little
good.
Stuff as well, so, yeah.
But a lot of them won't
I know
do
what
it
you mean.
anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of people, and I'm noticing now the plumber comes and he won't fix it. Plumbers are, you know, the waterproofing guy comes and he tells you how to fix it, but then he won't do it. He won't do it. He says, here, I'm going to waterproof this. He says, you need to waterproof this. You go, okay, what's wrong with it? And he goes, well, it's leaking. And you're like, yeah, I can see that. I can see that. He goes, where's it leaking from there? You mean where the water's dropping out? And where's that coming from? Oh, probably over there. That'll be $300. That'll be $500. And here's another company that can fix it for $20,000. Do you know what I mean? And I'm the guy coming in who rips up the shower and then re-waterproofs it for you. Do you know what I mean? And I'm slowly doing more and more and more. You know why? Because I don't need insurance. And that's why they can't do it anymore. Just like why you can't, that's why there's no community organizations anymore. Why are there no community organizations anymore? And everyone says it's because no one wants to work for free. That's not true. It's because of insurance. Because you can't insure anything anymore. And if you can't insure it, you can't do it. And the trouble with the tradesmen is they can't do anything anymore because they're not insured. I go work down at Waves. I do the simplest jobs. I told them, I said, why don't you buy, they've got an engineer from Chile working for them. He's amazing. I said, buy the guy a $1,000 bag of Makita tools. 2,000, okay, a good one. I said, you'll have to call me once every 3 months. I go in there once a week at the moment. And they said, no, we can't insure that. I tell you, mate, they're going to run themselves out of business. Watch. Mark my words. No, I know in the end.
Insurance brokers are up on that list.
Yeah. Well, eventually they're going to run themselves out of town.
There you go.
They'll have to become handyman.
They'll all have to become handymen. But they won't be able to because they will have useless themselves out of being able to do anything. They're hammering nails into their fingers going, I can't insure this. I'm just saying. Anyway, who knows what the future has. But, so, to dominate the mind. The mind itself is amazing because the whole society is the way it is because of the mind. You understand what I mean? The reason why we live in a toppling society with insurance, money issues, constant mess, absolutely falling apart, unlivable conditions financially for literally almost everybody, only 10% of people actually living quite well, is because of the fact of the mind. Because no one works to dominate the mind anymore. The mind dominates them. The mind spends all its time solving little equations, yeah? No one stops to actually question the mind anymore. The mind rides them. So this is quite interesting, yeah? And it's encouraged. The whole world is encouraged to live in a completely mental-based society, completely via the mind, 100%. When I was growing up, that's how it is. You should go to university so you can get educated to get a good job. Nowadays, even if you're not going to university, you've got to find your way in, mate. You got to go get a whole bunch, start some business and make a whole bunch of money on Facebook or something. Start your own thing, whatever. But it's all about the mind, yeah? Trying to find little ways in and around everything. So the problem here is this mind keeps you busy all the time. The mind that is constantly thinking about the way to, make all the money so that I can relax is never going to do the work. Is never going to work psychologically. Do you understand what I mean? Because it's too busy trying to solve the problem of the world. How can it do that? The amount of people who've come to Gnosis who've told me that we've had a lot of people come through, so they're coming to Gnosis, say, oh, this is the greatest thing I've ever been to. I'm going to make a retreat center so that everybody can come to Gnosis. I'm going to build a massive retreat center out here in the hinterland, you know what I mean? And I'm going to get millions of dollars, and then I'm going to build a huge retreat center, and then that's it. And once I've got my millions, I won't have to work ever again. That's just not true. The mind actually, the worst bit is the mind actually tells you that. That's how the mind tells you. It's like the mind is like the dad who's going to take his kids out to play tomorrow. I'll take you out tomorrow. We'll go to the park tomorrow. Then tomorrow comes, oh, sorry, I'm busy. How about we'll go tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, but it never comes. And this is what the mind's always doing this. And the mind's always promising everyone, oh, the mind's actually saying, and the person is completely intended upon it. They say, oh no, I'm definitely going to find a spiritual path. I'm definitely going to do it. I'm definitely going to work on myself. I'm definitely going to die myself. I just need to make, $20 million first. And I'm right on the edge. I've started a big company and it's making money, and I've got the Chinese investors, and it's all about being astute. Do you understand what I mean? It's all about being astute because the whole system itself is unethical. There's no way to really be completely ethical in a financial system. It's impossible. It can't be achieved. Yeah, the whole system itself collapses. The idea that capitalism can work, that a whole bunch of people can just make a whole bunch of money and there's enough money for everybody to be rich, actually is insane. It just doesn't work that way. How can the factory worker ever be as well off as the guy who owns the factory? It cannot work that way. For the system to work, for people to say, when you go on Instagram, when you go on YouTube, when you go on TikTok, and people say, here's the secret to getting rich, that means, by rote, if you will have more, someone else will have less. That is how the society works. That's why you have to learn to be content with little. So, but why is this a problem? Because of your mind. Because your mind is just wasting your time. That's it. It's just coming up with another plan, another thing to solve the problem. I'm going to solve all your problems, yeah? The reality is you could be completely homeless and still work on yourself and die on yourself. It would be much harder because you're going to be living on the streets. You've got to be, fighting for a pigeon or something, And you get the pigeon and you cook it. No, I'm just kidding. You just get your dole check once a week. You just don't spend it on weed and you'll be right, and then go live in a bush. That's enough. You know what I mean? You can totally get away with it. There's heaps of people out in Mullen doing it. Yeah, see? It's still there. It used to be way more common 10 years ago. It used to be even more common 20 years ago. In the 90s, it was extreme. It was like a way. Being a tramp was like a total way to be, you know what I mean? But now...
You cleaned them all out of the dunes in Bruns.
Yeah.
No, that's
Everybody,
right.
so many kids living in those dunes, it was ridiculous. Eventually the council just came through and put notes on all the tents saying we're clearing all these tents tomorrow, so pack your things.
Yeah. Oh, it's a bit stressful.
Yeah.
For all the people living in there, you know, imagine being a kid just playing in the dunes, enjoying yourself, and suddenly that's it. Bam, there's bulldozers coming in. So, it's a bit mean. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. What I'm trying to point out is the problem is the mind. So the mind's always trying to solve the problem. And even when you try to work on the ego, the mind can come and solve your problem. So you're supposed to sit there and meditate and quieten your mind. But instead, the mind tries to solve your problem. So you got an issue with somebody, yeah? And so you think you might sit and go into deep meditation and relax, you know, and then slowly sort of finish with the issue once the mind is quiet. But instead, the mind's like, why don't you go for a walk? Grab a coffee. That'll make you feel better, yeah? Because you'll have that coffee and you really enjoy it. Get yourself a croissant while you're at it, because croissants always make you feel better, even though you're allergic to dairy and gluten. You know, get yourself an almond croissant. And then have a little, and dip it in your coffee and enjoy that sort of thing. And get yourself a milky one, because you don't usually treat yourself much. And once you're feeling a lot better, then you'll feel better about that other person. And then you won't need to worry about working on it. And this is what the mind does. So then you don't actually work on it. So what actually happens is that issue just goes down into the subconscious. And then you have a problem with it again, and then you go get another coffee. And this just keeps happening. Or I go and buy something. You know, like I remember I had a friend who did the whole retail therapy thing, you know? But they were completely organic. They lived in the organic section of Adelaide. So like there's like literally this street, McGill Road. It's probably more bigger now, but there used to be all these organic shops all in one little cluster. You know, like there was organic school there as well where the kids went. It's the whole thing. It was literally, yeah, they had a Steiner stream in the school. So you could send your kids to a public school and still get a Steiner education. It's just, you know, it's the dream. Yeah, it's fantastic. But what was interesting is I remember talking to him once and he goes, anytime that my wife starts worrying about money and she goes, what do I say, that's it. And we go out for dinner and we buy, and she buys a new dress and I buy a new shirt. And we take the kids to a movie right there, just to show us that we're not materialistic. That's what he told me when I was talking about materialism, and he said, yeah, I get it. And I'm like, I don't think you do. You know you're massively in debt, right? And he's like, yeah. But I don't want to think about it. And when we do suffer about it, we just go right out and we just make sure. I'm like, so you just drop like $3,000 anytime that you think that your debt's crushing you and you're suffering. You go and just slap another $3,000 on the mortgage. I didn't say it like that. I was much more, what do you call it? Diplomatic. He was like, yeah, exactly. See, I don't want to be materialistic. And I'm like, oh my God.
I know a guy who did that. A mate of mine, he's a bit older than me, in the Gold Coast. He's going through a really rough time and got a $250,000 loan, you know, and just wanted to spoil himself. Didn't even want to look at how he was going to pay it back, but just make himself feel good for a while. Yeah. That's
so Gold Coast. I remember when I was teaching in the Gold Coast, I met a lady and she lived out in Burleigh, Nikki, and I remember she knew everyone in that area. Everyone. And I remember she told me that. She said all of her friends, every single one of them, were just drowning in debt. Drowning. And she said they were still buying new cars. These are like every 5 years they would sell their old car, buy a brand new car every 5 years, even if they couldn't afford it. They just slap it on the mortgage, refinance, and just keep going. And she said all these people were just waiting, and then the plan was to eventually like sell the house, sort of cancel that somehow, and then it would be okay. But the Gold Coast got a real problem with that. You know, real problem. So it's interesting. So what I'm trying to point out here is this is the mind. So the mind solves all my problems. Yeah? And for us, yeah, and for most people, as I said, the mind is the one side. And the worst bit is the mind doesn't actually care. So you can sort of go through this whole process, and then the mind finally is like, well, you may as well kill yourself now because there's no way out. And that's literally the way the mind works. The mind says, okay, refinance the mortgage, get a bit extra money, go to Sweden, is it Sweden or Switzerland, and euthanize. And that's the mind. And I've heard those exact stories. So, and you know, whether they're drowning in debt or not, or whatever's going on, that's the mind. The mind's solving all my problems. Oh, I get a little bit anxious around people. So rather than work on that or sort myself out or actually try to fight my mind and tell it that it's being insane, I go and sit in a corner for ages and not deal with people, get worse. And then finally, as I said, I decide, I think the mind says, okay, this isn't working, let's kill ourselves. And that's your mind. That's literally the person there's a person who's, Dante, hop up here for a sec. That's a person, turn around. That's a person who's literally like this, ready? Like this. Hey. Go and buy a donut. I know, like, you're not hungry, but you should just, like, but you make you feel better, right? Make you feel better. Make you feel so good. And why? You don't need to be sad anymore if you just had a donut. Be so happy. And so that's what it's like. Your mind is like that. It's constantly berating you with absolute bullshit. And you feel like, and often the way it works is like when you have a whining child, it gives you the thought pattern or the feeling, really, it's a feeling, that if you just eventually succumb, at least it'll sort of leave you alone. So when you start to work on your mind, when you start to challenge the mind, and go, okay, actually, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to, like, for instance, you start to work on one of these 7 defects, and we're going to talk about, like, gluttony is a good example of what I was saying. When you start to work on that, you decide, I'm going to remove that, the mind starts to berate you. Oh, I'm miserable. It's after class. I just need a bit of me time. Just crack some chips. It's like, no, we're not doing that anymore. Oh, come on, crack another chips. But I need to lose weight. It's bad for my asthma. It's not good for my body anymore. It's making me sick. He goes, yeah, but you need to be happy. You actually need to be happy. Wouldn't you rather just be happy? Don't think about tomorrow. Just have a bag of chips. It'll make you happy. And it's like the whining child at the checkout. I want this. I want the lolly. And finally, fine. If you'll shut up, I'll give you the lolly. This never happens to our children, but I'm just letting you understand that. That's the way you think, You think that if you just keep, that's what the mind's like. It gives you that feeling like if I just give in this one time, then at least I won't have to suffer anymore.
And then just reset.
Yeah.
I notice for myself, it gets the more I try to get dominion over my mind, the smarter it gets. So it's smarter it gets at deceiving it.
I understand what you mean.
Me deceiving me for the purpose of learning how to not deceive me, I guess, but. So for example, I'll go to meditate and it'll be like, yeah, let's meditate, but let's just quickly watch a little YouTube video about the best way to meditate, or, let's find the ultimate meditation supportive music, and then while we're there, we'll just sort of pay an account that'll help us meditate. Because once we've paid that account, we'll be able to meditate more. So we're still focusing on meditation here, but as your mind, I'm helping you. Actually, no. Let's not actually meditate now. Let's, watch a wonderful calm video.
It's your Brad.
It's kind of like it's almost like the like when you try to catch your shadow as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember.
Kind of like wherever you kind of go, it's like it's
unfulfilled.
It's almost like
it's always one step ahead.
Yeah, or out of step.
Yeah.
And so for myself, I just know, like, obviously the phone one, sometimes just force of will, like trying stuff that creates a break.
Sounds like healthy habits. Healthy habits are good.
Mm.
Have a routine.
Yeah.
And you don't have to think, you just do it.
Mm.
Well, Mick is going to give us the philosophy behind how to dominate the
Unfortunately, it's the hardest of all.
Yeah, right.
The way to dominate the mind is using willpower, which means that the mind has to be, that's true, routine and habit helps a lot. Do you know what I mean? But it's will. I don't know if you've ever like given up something like a vice or something, you'll know that the longer the longer you stay at zero tolerance, the easier it gets. Do you know what I mean? So the very beginning, the cold turkey style thing, you fight, and then if you give in even a little bit, then it's like 10 times harder to fight your way back. And so the way to fight the mind this is the way. Samael says that you actually have to talk to the mind from a position of authority. So you literally tell the mind to shut up, to see the mind as a separate entity. and to actually be like, he literally says, I am your master, you are my servant, you do what I tell you. And he says, this is the way you work with the mind. When the mind's like, you're like, shut up. That's not what we're doing. We are concentrating on this right now. We're going to do a practice and you're going to shut the hell up. And this is the way you work with the mind, with a position of authority. If we sit there arguing with ourselves, I don't want to, we never get anywhere. But the problem is there's one fatal little piece of information missing from this. Where do you get that will from? Sorry?
From your bank, from your...
Would that it were so simple. From transmutation. The will is linked to sexual transmutation. And you'll notice if you have a sexual failure, your will is always weak. Yeah? Even, and this is the same thing. Everything drains the sexual energy. Obviously, the sexual failure being the worst. But when we have a sexual failure specifically, we feel that weakness of will. We're drained, we're tired. When we transmute our sexual energy, the transmutation is what actually gives us force. So yes, we need to take a forceful position with the mind. So next time I'm dealing with the mind in meditation, you're like, no, you need to shut up. You need to be quiet is enough. And you can be like that. I'd suggest you try it, because most people don't do that because they just don't think that's a thing. They don't think that you can actually talk that way with yourself, We treat the mind like a gentle parent with a child. We're like, oh, well, how are you okay with that? Are you fine with that? Maybe I've put 3 covers on your bed. There's a thin one, a middle one, and a warm one, and I've put them in such a way that you can pull each one up slowly when you're feeling it, and you can just decide on the right one when you're feeling it, And then the kid just goes, and just throws them at you. And you go, oh, I can see that you're having strong emotions right now and that you're feeling, but I want you to know that I love you and I value you, and that it's all going to be okay. And if you want to sleep with no covers, that's also fine, but I'm just going to put them back on the bed. I'm just going to put them back on the bed. I'm just going to put them back on the bed. Okay, Dad's going to sit next to you and cry. And this sounds fine. But the reality is that's how we deal with the mind. We don't take a forceful position. I'm not saying you have to be forceful with your kids. What I'm saying is you need to be forceful with yourself. If you're actually hard on yourself, you are much easier to find the line with others. It's true. If you're gentle on yourself, it's very hard to find the line with others. In fact, you can end up being a tyrant because you're too soft on yourself, and you end up being hard on others because you hate yourself for being too soft on yourself. You need to be, remember what it says? You use your rod on yourself. The Christ says you measure yourself. Use your measuring rod on yourself, yeah? So the rod that we usually use for others, you should be perfect, you should sort yourself out, needs to be on ourselves. So we actually need to be very forceful with the mind. So when I'm trying to sort something out, when I'm trying to figure something out, I have to speak very harshly with the mind. And I know this can sound crazy at first for a lot of people. Like, what do you mean? I'm talking to myself. You're not. You're talking to the mind. The mind is a separate entity, man. The way it works, it pushes on you. Take a day to look at the way the mind works, and you'll realize it is very much, it's like incepting thoughts. It's like what I did to Dante. It's sitting there whispering in your ear, and it feels so much like you. But when you separate properly, you can see it's totally a separate thing. And so you have to be really hard on it. Yeah? We have to really, if I want to bring it together, but it only works if I'm transmuting. It's very important. If I'm doing the Hamsai of a single person, practicing the alchemy in a couple, I get a lot more force, and then I can deal with the mind a lot better. Then I have that strong position, and it's much easier for me to say, no, that's it. No, we're not going to do this. No, I'm not going to sign up to the new thing. No, I'm not going to go and get the coffee right now because I'm finished with that right now, and be very harsh on the mind. And I've often found people who are very successful in life sort of know a little bit of this. They have a good technique. They have a good technique for the mind. That's why you've often noticed like Aryans, the natives of Aries, often pretty good with that sort of thing. They create their own pain and suffering through their own methods. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, if they want to do something, those people have will. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but the natives of Aries, they've got willpower in spades. They're amazing. When they want to do something, no one can stop them. They're so strong. And I've watched them. I've watched them just give up everything. I've watched natives of Aries give up overnight alcohol, drugs, and cigarettes in just one go. And then just what's it called? Raw dogging? And then just raw dog it for like 2 weeks, literally like that, shaking, you know, and then just gone. That's it. They just push through. You understand what I mean? And that's because they actually understand. The reason for that is that this is a Martian teaching. This specific teaching I'm giving you, the dominion of the mind, emanates from Mars. It is a Martian teaching. They have it in them. I'm not saying therefore all Aries are going to have that. That's not true. Otherwise no Aries would ever be addicted to drugs and they'd all be perfect, wouldn't they? But they have willpower. That's why when they talk about the Aries, Aries is often seen as the highest of signs, even though anyone who knows an Aries will say that can't possibly be true because they're so selfish and difficult. But it's because they have will and everyone else doesn't, you know, when they want to. And when they don't have will, what are they? Just sitting around doing literally nothing and driving you insane. And but you can't move them. All right, so that's the whole point, because it's all about will. If you got willpower, you can push. So there are ways to develop willpower. 1, transmutation. 2, you can do runes. Runes are really good. The body postures here, like that. You can do far to the morning sun is very good. But there's a specific rune for willpower, which is like that. Ta, te, ti, to, tu, which is the rune dawn. So you make your body like the rune dawn, like that, the Nordic letter. And you can do the mantra ta, te, ti, to, tu, like that if you would like. That helps. But again, working for willpower is also in very large part attitude and transmutation. Very important, the transmutation. You know what I mean? And learning to be hard on ourselves in that way. And it's tricky because you have to be a little bit careful, because if you do it incorrectly, you can just end up on a big pendulum, if you understand what I mean. Meaning you start being really hard. So this sort of dominion of the mind really starts in meditation. So what I'm teaching you here about dominion of the mind is to be used in meditation first. So when we're trying to meditate and the mind is going crazy, to start taking a firm stance mentally when I'm dealing with the mind. Do you understand what I mean? Not necessarily physically at first. So we work mostly in meditation, and once we develop the willpower, then it would be a lot easier to do it in our physical life. So what's important here is the law of the pendulum. Yeah? Transmutation can fix that sort of thing. Because it changes the way it changes the way the physical brain works, and it also changes the way the mind works. It gives a huge amount more power to the mind. When the mental body is created, that will become a lot easier, trust me. But on top of that, the law of the pendulum is important. If I start trying to do something, as I said, this willpower work has to be done correctly. As I said, it has to start in the mind. We have to work strongly with transmutation. We can do some specifically will-based exercises for, again, these are all transmutation exercises as well. Runes are all transmutation, every single one of them. But if I start something too heavily, I can create a pendulum. So it means that literally if I decide that's it, I'm just going to give up absolutely everything. That's why I said it's better to start in meditation, working to create that will. If I just start like that, yep, that's it, I'm giving up absolutely everything, we're just going to swing back. That's just what's going to happen, because it's the law of the pendulum. You know what I mean? I said that before about that person who said, I'm going to meditate for 3 hours a day or something. Then it just end up swinging back. Yeah. So I start first working to create the will in the mind. I start working with what Luke said too, creating good habits and good routine, so that I can back that up physically. And then I start with transmutation, and this will slowly start to create force. And then what I'm actually doing though is I'm only making smaller moves like that. Yeah, and then I'm able to mitigate swinging back. I won't swing back, which is what you're doing there. 20 minutes, and then so you don't swing back. You're being careful of the law of the pendulum. I've noticed a lot of people figure that out. If you want to be successful, a lot of people figure that out about themselves. I have noticed unequivocally that all of those really super hyper mentally successful people, you know, the super duper duper guys, yeah? The big super guys, right? They all live understanding the pendulum. And you know what they all do? They all do the same thing. They go crazy working hard, and then what do?
Go to a retreat.
Party.
Big parties. That's right. They go to a not usually Vipassana because that's too laid back. They go to a spa. They go to Bali for 2 weeks. All of them. You see what they're like? They work their asses to the bone, and some of these guys work hard. They work 7 days a week. They work really hard. They never see their kids, all this sort of stuff. But then what do? Then when they go on a business trip, and what is a business trip? It's got spas, it's got things, so what they do is they still live in a life of pendulum. They're just constantly swinging backwards and forwards, They take 3 months off, and then usually they burn out as well. A lot of these guys burn out and their whole life swings back, and then they can't do anything for the rest of their lives. And you find them all around here in Byron, going to all the health things and stuff, burning all their cash because now their whole bodies are wrecked and they can't do anything. Do you know what I mean? What do you do? Actually, I was this massive guy in Hollywood. What do you do now? Just constantly go to health retreats because I have everything under the sun. Every mental illness, every physical illness, every problem you can imagine, I got it. Yeah? So again, this is the swing. But I've noticed in the ones who are successful, again, they understand the pendulum. They're very careful with the pendulum. So, as I said, I root my fragility. That's a bit of a subject. I don't really want to go into that. Yeah. I might leave it there for now. So yeah, moving on. Removing mind from duality, as I said, it's just about working with the mind in general. I don't really want to go hugely into that at the moment because it's really, to keep that simple, is what we're talking about is bringing order to the mind, which is bringing this sort of level 7 into the mind here, which has to do with, frankly, meditation. Yeah, meditation is what brings order to the mind. Learning to teach the mind to be silent eventually brings order to the mind, if you understand what I mean. Removing ourselves from the sort of contradictions and compromise, all that stuff. I was talking about that earlier. Not constantly doing everything via the mind. Yeah. Trying to take ourselves out of that constant process of good and bad, right and wrong, etc., etc. That's what it means to remove yourself from duality. Okay, but really, I mean, it's a pretty big concept. To remove yourself from duality literally means like
creation.
Yeah. So it's a pretty big deal. You can remove the mind to a degree. You can't really remove the mind from duality because the mind literally lives in duality. It's the body of duality. But you can stop yourself from being completely caught up in it all the time. The constant battle of less and more, right and wrong, etc., etc. Okay, the last thing, I just put it on here. Samael writes a very interesting thing in this chapter about the transmutation of defects. It says pride into faith and humility, avarice into altruism, lust into chastity, anger into love, laziness into diligence, and gluttony to temperance, envy into happiness for others. He describes these as actually being the 7 planets, and that we are mispolarizing the power of the 7 planets. Like the sun is pride, and it needs to become the solar aspect of humility instead of the solar pride. Avarice, I believe, is Saturn. Lust is Venus. The anger is Martian. I can't remember the last 3. It's in there somewhere. It's in the book. You have a look in the book. So anyway, just to finish this off, because we want to do a reading. The axiom: when the science enters your heart and your soul has been sweetened by wisdom, ask and it will be given unto you. This has to do with atonement and humility. A beautiful teaching on how to understand the bitterness, struggle, and pain that is described in this card, and how to truly triumph. You don't really triumph by adding more bitterness, if you know what I mean, and by adding more pain. I often think about that when I have a situation with someone and there's an issue, and I sort of look at whether or not my action is just going to create more bitterness and pain. Do you know what I mean? Not for myself, but just for the other person, just in general. Is my activity here going to lessen pain and bitterness, or is it going to continue? So, when the science enters your heart and your soul, what we're talking about here is atoning. Yeah. So when we begin to atone, atonement means to have genuine repentance, but also as an activity. Do you know what I mean? Like to actually go out of our way to fix the issues and our errors. It's so often now I see, it's like we have a problem and we go, oh well, You know, oh, I sort of ruined that person's life. That's fine. You know, oh, I've created a problem there. Oh, well, they'll have to deal with that. And we just don't, you know, so no one seems to care anymore. You know, like our whole society seems to just not really care. It's sort of become a parody of itself. And yeah, so when I've actually within myself created a superior feeling, a superior emotion deep within myself, often through meditation, you know, going deeper into myself and understanding better the situation in the depths of meditation, yeah, then I actually gain this wisdom, this depth inside of myself, this wisdom, this understanding. So this has to do with having a relationship through the being in deep meditation. And this is when we can have a much richer interior life. So I quite like this, when the science enters your heart, yeah, which is when the science which reminds us of the mind, yeah, you know, when the mind is linked with the heart, and the soul is sweetened by wisdom. When the soul, which is the will, is sweetened by the wisdom of the being, then ask and it's given unto you. Yeah? Then everything works out well once we actually have that connection. It's quite a beautiful axiom, sort of one you sort of meditate on to have a deeper connection. Whew. It's a bit longer than I thought it was going to be. How do we feel? Do you have any questions so far? I've already given the prediction. So basically when you get it, it's triumph, but through difficulty. So if you get it, expect some hardships coming your way, but ones that can be, ones that we can triumph over. It usually means like you're going to get what you want, or this good thing is coming, but it's not going to be easy. It's really what sort of that sort of often means when I see an interpretation. You know, someone says, oh, you know, I like his one guy was interested in this relationship with a woman. He goes, oh, you know, yeah, I really like her. And he did the tarot reading, and it was 7 at the top and 19 at the bottom. And I was like, oh. So what does that mean? He says, I don't know, help me read the reading. I said, yeah, it's going to be full on. It's going to be hard, but you guys are going to be really happy. You know? But you're going to go through it. You know, it's true. Yeah, she already had a couple of kids and he wasn't really ready for that. And yeah, they had a hard time when they first got together. You know, dealing with the ex and all this sort of stuff. But once he'd gone through that battle, everything was wonderful. So, yeah, a positive card, but a difficult card. The being riding in the chariot of the mind, the being dominating the mind, willpower. That's the armor, is willpower dominating the mind. Okay, good. Should we do a reading? Okay. You want to do it, don't you?
Yeah.
Cool.